This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today to conduct a public shade tree hearing for Eversource's requested removal of, I think it's 10 trees located within the public right-of-way between the numbers of 262 and 305 Loudville Road. I'm Greg Ullman, the Director of Public Works for the city and acting tree warden. Just go around the table quickly. You just state your name.
I'm Barry Croak, Supervisor of Vegetation Management for Eversource.
Kim Lyons, I own the property at 266 Loudville Road.
Tony Taft, owner of 209 Loudville Road.
Clyde Eglers, I'm the Utilities Supervisor.
Shade tree meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
So you said 266 Loudville?
Correct.
Oh, that's me, 260, oh.
No, I'm 266.
262.
Yes.
Oh dear.
I'll just have you sign the sheet that's going around, but so you can put your name on it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just your name and address for the...
Heidi Hawks,
Okay. Yeah.
262.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
that's what we're Steve. Good.
Good. I went downstairs.
So Barry, can you just provide us a little background as to why Eversource needs to have these, this request in for these removals?
Yes, well, going back a ways, Loudville Road, it's a backbone of our circuit that feeds all that part of Easthampton and all of Westhampton.
Yep.
And it's been historically a poor reliability circuit, so we've been trying to do some upgrades on it. And this is just one of the latest parts, putting in some more spacer cable, which is much more resilient. It can take a lot more contact with the trees or trees falling, but at the same time, we try to keep some clearance around it because if trees do fall, it's such a strong construction that oftentimes the poles will snap and then you have a long duration outage or a long fix. So that's the main concern. It's just basically to increase reliability.
Yep.
In a nutshell.
Okay, so I have here a letter from Mr. Taft, 209 Loudville Road. He is voicing his opposition to the removal of all but 2 of the 10 requested trees. He's fine with the removal of the tree near the residence at 266, which I have as a... There's a pine. Okay, so the pine at 266 you don't have a problem with. Okay. And the oak at 274 you're okay with.
That's correct.
But the other 8, you would like to have documentation on file of your opposition to their removal.
It's on the basis of clearances and what Eversource is doing. Spacer cable, should I say Hendrix wire, otherwise known as tree wire, is used by utilities where it's adverse publicity as far as cutting down trees. It's compatible with trees. It's often used off-road. You'll often see the wire in contact with branches. The key is that when branches break, they bounce off either in the street or in the private property. But as the Eversource man was saying, if a whole tree comes down, whether you've got open wire, cross arms, or spacer cable, you may lose a pole. But we don't live in a zero-risk environment. So the bottom line is, what's reasonable? What would a reasonably prudent person do or know to minimize contact? And I commend you guys for running the spacer cable because that is going to dramatically improve, our service reliability on the street. And I talked with Steve and Heidi and had looked at their trees, and initially from the standpoint of service reliability, I was against what Eversource feels they need to do. They've already run the spacer cable, they haven't cut over to the new wire. They'll at some point, once they've made all the connections on the Hendrix wire, they'll remove the open wire and probably be out of here by first of March or a little bit thereafter, give or take. But I want to amend, in talking with Heidi and talking with Steve, they have an oak tree that's kind of one-sided and leaning heavy towards their property. It's healthy, and Eversource has gotten a facility by it without any complications. But I feel they feel that the heavy lean is probably about a 70-degree lean towards their house, and that it would be reasonable to relent on getting that tree down. A sugar maple next to it is more perpendicular, but again, it's one-sided as a result of having trimmed on the roadside. But it could probably stand for trimming on the backside to balance it up. But I'm not opposed to those other two trees if they feel very strong then.
So I'm trying to follow, is there a third tree that you'd like to say is okay for removal?
Yeah, I'm backing off on the first oak tree at, I think it was residence 262.
262, yeah.
Okay.
So can I just talk about those couple of trees? The branches are falling down.
Yeah.
So some of the branches are big. Norman may say they're healthy, but when it poses a problem to anything, it can be our property or it can be cars driving by. That's an issue. I mean, we've been wanting the town to take them down anyway, but because of funding, they're not. Guess they're not an emergency.
Well, just so you're aware, it's not a decision that I make.
Well,
As tree warden or director of public works,
I don't know who makes
mayor,
it.
because someone has
Yeah.
contested their removal.
Yeah.
So the mayor has to make an ultimate decision. So
Yeah.
any comments you make today will be recorded in the minutes.
Yeah, I'm just.
I do have the communications that came through email that I will give to the mayor, and she'll make a decision as soon as possible, as soon as she can,
Yeah,
probably
we-
within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we used to have 3 trees, and the town did end up cutting one down
Mhm.
because it was really
time,
dead.
sure.
Yeah, and so we were saying, can we get these, and so it's on hold or whatever, whatever the situation is there. But I am not opposed to having them cut down. I don't think they're that safe really anymore.
One thing I also wanted to share, my own credentials, the aspect of being a college-trained and educated professional arborist, mass certified arborist, and having worked for National Grid for 36 years, doing the same thing is very to me, but having administrative and operations responsibility, so I've seen a lot of it, from Spencer all the way to the New York line, bordering Vermont, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. So, and also I've been to Texas and Florida in service reliability situations, and I have some legal training. So yeah, I'm interested in procedure. I'm interested in process, make sure that we're not circumventing the process of Chapter 87 of the general laws, and this is what this is all about for me. I'm not adamantly opposed, but I'm opposed to not being transparent.
Okay, well, anyone have any further comment? I've got an email here from the resident 274 that he sent in support of all the marked trees coming down, given the branches and power line issues that they've created over years. These will be in with the minutes from the meeting. Also an email from Steve and Heidi Hawks at 262 Loudville Road. They're looking to endorse the approval of removal of the trees by their property. And one more here from Mr. Hawks documenting his communications with other residents that were supportive of the trees being removed to let this reliability work happen. So all of this will be entered into the minutes. I will speak with the mayor and see if I can get her to issue a decision on their removals within the next 2 weeks.
I do want to say at 266 Loudville Road, right between me and Heidi, and there is a there's the two, he's not opposing the pine tree, which definitely needs to come down. That is definitely dead and dying. But the two oak trees there, they also have huge limbs. One of them is on my property, one's right adjacent to my property. And we have had huge limbs that come down
At 266.
at 266. And like I said, one of those is on 264's property. But it definitely, the limbs fall on my property as well as theirs.
Thank you.
We did an assessment of all the trees that were underway. And I'm looking at it from a professional arborist standpoint, the aspect of the health of the trees by walking around the tree. So I was looking at rot holes and then looking up at the crown area for dead wood or dieback, which I did not see, other than the two trees, one at 266 and the other a little further on up the road. But another issue I have, with the installation of Hendrix wire, otherwise known as tree wire and spacer cable, cutting back 15 feet onto private property, that's overkill. No question about it, overkill. And that needs to stop. What you do with private landowners is your business once you're off the public way, but that's overkill. It's one thing if it's a dead, dying, structurally oak tree, but when you've got healthy trees. And one of the other things that kind of comes into play, we have had issues on Logville Road with service reliability. Pines uprooting, coming down, there's no question. Pines are shallow rooted, and when you've got height and you've got resistance to flow of air, and you have wet ground, potential of trees uprooting coming down is going to be very high. And even some of those properties below Ashley Circle, you're going to have more problems there, even beyond 15, 20 feet, because once you start interfering with a stand of pine trees, everything else gets weakened. So more pine trees will come down. But the other thing too, I'm asking, and it'll be on that list, I'm asking that Eversource grind out all the stumps in the project area, that they backfill with loam and seed. I'm asking that any trees that are public shade trees that are taken down be replaced with trees 1.5 inches in caliber or greater at the discretion of the city's tree warden, with the owners having first choice if they want the trees, and I believe the trees should be set back at least 35 feet from the road so that it doesn't go back into the conductors. This would be part of what I would stipulate as a condition under which if the mayor allows to take some, all, or no trees down, but if the mayor agrees to sign off on allowing the trees to be taken, since she's the highest elected official here in town, then those conditions should prevail. I think that's fair, reasonable. And one other thing from your standpoint, I've been in touch with the city of Northampton, and I'm going to initiate an opportunity for Easthampton to adopt a look at a shade tree hearing, or a shade tree commission to assist with the ongoing stuff of helping urban forestry, but also being cooperative with Eversource where they need to strike the middle ground and have a good partnership.
Great.
But I think a tree commission is needed, and we haven't had that for a long, long time.
I don't know if the city ever did, but. Yeah.
No, I don't think they ever did. Many, many years ago, when Henry Matthews was tree warden in town, I think he charged tree warden fees. In other words, he'd go out and do inspections on crews that were working in town, and the city would set the rate, and he could bill you on a weekly basis, much like the electrical inspector bills us for work going on in our house, or the building inspector. And I talked with Sarah before your time, and she and I rode over, and I talked to you, it was very, on West Street, some sloppy work that Davy Tree Company had done there. brush being left behind, stubs on trees that weren't flushed back. The work was less than professional. So, you know.
I'd imagine you've probably seen that in your time too, in your national grid territory. And I'm taking it all in, so I'll answer some of your questions.
From my standpoint, I'd be a tough taskmaster, but I'm firm and fair. And that's how I try to conduct myself during my career.
All right.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Tapp. Thank you, everyone. I
Thank you,
think
Tony. Sorry.
we don't have any more
Yes,
comments on
20 years and you're
trees
still
at
at
the
it.
end here. I'll go ahead and,
Well, a few points I wanted to make,
Yeah.
and you started off mentioning zero tolerance, and it's not a zero tolerance thing, tree reliability, but that's what we do strive for. We'll never get it, obviously, but we do as many improvements as possible. So, and I realize some trees are worse than others. The pines, obviously, the shallow-rooted trees, and brittle branching, and we have some white oaks up there, which probably aren't too much of a problem, and even the red oaks. But we do see historically, and you remember this because you go back a ways, not just the 2011 snowstorm, October 30th, 31st,
Yep.
but October 4th, 1987. You probably remember that one. It made a mess of the Berkshires and eastern New York State, we did about there. And in those instances, big healthy oak trees, it's just an overwhelming force. They break, they twist, branches hang off with all the fiber, even in the hickories. Saw a lot of that.
In those circumstances, everything comes down.
Right, and that's why we're more toward the zero tolerance. We'll never get it, obviously, but we do what we can where we can. And I don't care if we leave some of these trees. It's not the end of the world, but we're just striving for the best possible reliability. And at the same time, I don't want to say no to trees that we've agreed with abutters on if we don't have to. And I agree with your assessment, the pine tree, it's not even going to bother us, but it's good for everyone to get it out of there. It leans back just a little bit, the top's dying back. And the big oak that you had mentioned, it's got the fungus on the trunk, and that always makes me suspicious. Plus, there's other little things about the trunk that didn't look good.
One of the things we used to do in years past, and I suggested on some of the other trees, is using an increment board. That's what this is. Prior to some of the modernization, we could go to a pole and take a pierce in, kind of like a screw, and we take out a test sample, and we can see what the inside of a pole looked like, if it was hard, if it was rotted, or whether it was pretty solid. Another time is using a 2-pound hammer. I'm not sure you guys do that too. From time to time, we bang on, the lineman will bang on the pole, and if it sounds a certain way, that would generally imply it's solid and not rotted, but if it's giving, time to replace it. But on a couple of the other trees up there that I mentioned, probably one of the larger, bigger oaks that's up there, it'd probably be neat to get somebody to take a core sampling to find out whether there's internal rot. As I say, I looked around the trees, I'm not seeing anything other than the ones that I mentioned. I looked at the crown, I'm not seeing deadwood, which is what I look for. But sometimes that's not the only way to find out whether a tree's structural integrity is a point of contention. So, I'd recommend that in some of the larger oak trees. But as I say, Heidi and Steve's need, I think that's necessary.
All right, where was I before you started?
The storm.
Oh yeah, the 15 feet being overkill. I disagree with that. And the reasons I disagree is you have to have some starting point, a zone that you keep clear of overhanging branches. So we go back 15 feet, ground to sky clearances. That's only in some of the main lines and lines that had historically poor reliability. You mentioned yourself trees falling from far back, like pines and all that.
Sure.
Once we get 15 feet back, we do look further back. We inspect trees as far away as they can reach the wires. If a tree is totally rotted in the trunk, far away from the wires, we'll cut it down. In fact, one I just saw on the way here, and I remembered, I talked to you about it a while back, corner of Glendale and Rule. And
Yes.
that thing is in imminent risk of failure. we'll get that as soon as we come back for any work on Loudville, because it's in tough shape. But we are always looking far beyond the zone. But we do need to have a certain clearance zone, and I realize the Hendrix spacer cable is great stuff. But like I was saying before, when whole trees go, holes snap, and it takes a long time
It's
to
what
fix.
forward-thinking utilities use,
Mhm.
where there's adverse publicity as far as removing trees or overcutting. And it provides maximum service reliability. It's not zero risk. If a tree comes down, you've got open wire, cross-arm construction, that's gonna come down too. If you've got a spacer cable, that's gonna come down. If you go underground in places where there's high water table, you're gonna have problems. So there's no perfect solution. And trees and wires are always gonna be a problem. The idea is where we strike the middle ground.
Right.
And from my standpoint too, what I've shared with Greg is, I feel any public shade tree from henceforth should be marked consistent with the rules and regulations in Mass General Law 87.
Well, Chapter 87 does state that the tree warden has the ability to deem any tree a hazard, and there are many that are a hazard. Now, I wouldn't think that Greg would want to post the tree, take a look at it yourself, in the corner of Newell and Glendale. Why would anybody post that? The bark's falling off. In fact, the blue dot I put on might fall off before the crew gets to it.
Your company uses the term risk tree. It's a very frivolous statement.
Not really.
A tree, a hazard tree, a risk tree is not necessarily a hazard. Maybe a tree that you
Right,
don't like.
and that's why it's used legally.
Take a look at 17.
Hazard puts you in a
Well, gentlemen,
position.
for today, we're just here for the shade tree hearing for the trees that
Right.
matter at hand on Loudville Road. So
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and we'll close out today's shade tree hearing.
Okay, I did want to mention there are a few trees that I would not have a problem making concessions.
I will, yep, everything will go to the mayor in a package.
Yes, sir. I thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Stack.
We have the same outlook on many a thing, but our tolerance for risk is just a little further apart.
I placed my 36 years on this, I placed my 5 years in Texas and Florida. It was major storm restoration in Rhode Island. I still think when you are running spacer cable and Hendrix wire, you should be back off the 15 feet unless you can identify something specific.
Well, it's a valid point, but once again, it's a matter of tolerance for risk. And
Yeah,
we-
I don't buy that.
in the 20 years since you've been retired, the demand for reliability has grown exponentially, and it was very much in demand
Past
then.
cross arms, you're using spacer cable
Right.
now.
And everyone thought cross arms were great because the beautification brackets were prone to lightning strikes. That all changed, and it doesn't matter how many years you've been watching it, but things have changed, and it's way different from when I started, and that was 43, 44 years ago now. And at that time, we did a small opening of about 6 feet around the wires. Nobody really knew, but every time there was an ice storm, every span of wire had branches on it. You probably remember that sort of thing. And now we have an ice storm, unless it's a terrible storm. Most average ice storms, the branches sag, and we don't hit the wires.
You don't have this problem with the spacer cable and the tree wire.
No, but if a whole tree
Comes
goes.
off and,
Oh, no, you're right, you're right. And you can lay it against a tree and probably not have a problem unless abrasion, rubbing happens. But if a whole tree goes in a big storm.
If everything goes, we're all doomed.
Right, but what I'm saying is I agree with you, but our tolerance for risk are a little different.
I have to say, 6 days in October was not too bad. It was survivable without electricity. But boy, it was sure good when the electricity came back. And had it been the middle of winter, it would have been a lot worse for all of us who were without power.
I wish everybody
Yeah.
was as understanding as you. I can remember having guards posted at work centers before, like even 1985, Hurricane Gloria. And I can remember being down the shoreline, and they had to have security guards at the doors because people were so angry they're coming in and threatening people. So people don't want to lose their power. And that's just all we're trying to do.
But sometimes,
No,
one of the
That's
things,
when I remember coming
if you're in an
home
area
from work
where service
and watching the green lights on the way
trees are
home
falling,
on the transformers. And they
people
get
are
a
almost
little bit farther. It's
pre-programmed.
like, yes,
saying,
maybe
"Get
we have
them all,
power.
move them all."
Yes, we
And
might have
you-
power
You
tonight.
catch somebody who is
Oh, man, this one doesn't
discerning
rain. It's
or
like,
corrected. they'll almost,
Yeah, power was nice after that.
sign off on anything.
Yeah.
And that would be the concern. As Treatwood has,
Trees in front of your house, I drive down
responsible
Wawa
as a
Avenue.
guardian of
I
trees
drive down.
and forestry in a given community. He used to strike a balance between saving urban forestry
Well, it's
and
the oak, if it comes down,
allowing
it's coming down
utilities
our way
to
because everybody's on
reliable
this
electric
side,
service.
the other side's
He
tree.
he has to be
And in the
discerning.
town,
And when
yes,
trees
it's
are on the
responsible for our
public way
house
that
if
are
a tree
not
falls
dead,
on our
dying,
house, right?
or structurally weak,
I don't know.
they
Yeah,
should be
no, they're not.
subject
They're
to
not.
We checked.
Where's
a
that?
public safety hearing. And I've told Greg that it's my intent to make sure that we don't take any shortcuts.
Well, we've done that. We've followed the process here, and I appreciate everyone giving their input and coming to the hearing today.
And how do we find out the results?
The mayor
I know
will
the
issue a
mayor.
decision, I'm hoping within the next 14 days. That'll go to Eversource.
Good.
And,
We appreciate you having this hearing.
Yes,
and
yeah,
doing
feel
this
feel free
for
to
us.
send an email, or do we have your email address? Or
Yeah.
I do not have my email.
Okay.
Here, you can put it right on here, above your name, and we'll take it.
Can let you know.
And where this
Thank you.
conducted's up there now, the spacer cable which is on top, suspended from the messenger, and open wire down below, I'd recommend no tree work be done until, the contract with DEP powers cleaned up everything so that we're not adding to the problem. Meaning losing a branch.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And I will make sure that everybody gets an email, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
So, I think they would say that too.
Done?
Well, our contractors are very concerned about safety, and when they have an unplanned outage, they hear about it.
Yeah.
One thing, additional thing I'd say to you, they talked with a lineman up there at one point when I started sealing the trees that were identified. I said, looks like you're framing this for a spacer cable. And I could see it behind it where it was coming down. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm concerned with the trees here. And he said, I've never seen such extreme tree cutting. And these are guys who come in from Indiana. They think you're extreme too.
Linemen don't always want a lot of trees cut because trees equal overtime. It's just been that way forever.
Oh, yeah. I buy that. Cuts
Yeah,
down on the
Truth comes
overtime.
out.
But I want my power.
Yeah.
Just let us have our electricity in winter.
Well, I agree with you, and we try to strike a balance, and that's what we're here for. And I thank Greg for having the hearing, because it takes time out of your busy day.
We had a good showing, good conversation, and I appreciate everyone. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.